2 cents right now when it comes to Toshi. What do I think about this, even though nothing I say is financial advice? Well, first of all, I just don't see that market cap as being too ridiculous because at the price of 2 cents, again, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around 8.5 billion. Now, I get it. When it comes to Toshi, it hasn't really had that next leg up yet. But then at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if this did happen, even though it doesn't mean it will, but it wouldn't surprise me because when I take a look at Toshi, I think it's kind of piggybacking a little bit off of the attention that the base network is having. Now, what do I mean by this, right? Toshi is a meme coin on the base network. But then if I take a look at it, in the grand scheme of things, the base network is a layer 2. And a layer 2 in and of itself, as of right now especially, is nothing that special in my opinion. I mean, let's take a look at, for instance, something like Arbitrum, something like Cody, something like Optimism. Take a look at how well they're doing. They're not a small project by any means. Cody is kind of small actually, but then Arbitrum and Optimism, not really, right? But in terms of the price charts, it's not doing the best. But then again, just by being a layer 2 that has that Coinbase aspect, I think that really, brings a lot more attention to something like Toshi. Had, let's say, Toshi been in a different place, that's a totally different case, right? Probably wouldn't have the attention it does right now. So then I think that kind of works to, somewhat the benefit of something like Toshi just being on the base network. I think it's the right place for a project like that. And also, if we take a look at, let's say, something like Toshi, people sometimes like to tell me, oh, the exposure isn't the best. Well, take a look at what it's been able to achieve kind of in the medium term, so to speak, right? Coinbase. We take a look at the listing on OKX US not too long ago. We take a look at Binance US. That is very impressive. I mean, Coinbase in and of itself is already a pretty big victory, but Binance US, OKX US, right? This is the strides that Toshi is making. Now, inherently, because Toshi is a meme coin, it's not going to have the best use case out there of all time. And that's not something I would necessarily want to, evaluate Toshi as having a good use case because, again, when I take a look at a meme coin, I'm not taking a look at the use case. I'm taking a look at the cool factor, kind of the vibe overall, not so much about the use case. Not to say that Toshi doesn't have a use case, right? Because it kind of does. Like, for instance, Toshi Mart, which is kind of the most popular thing, I think, when it comes to Toshi. And Toshi Mart is basically like, a meme coin launchpad. However, there's a bunch of launchpads like that. So it's nothing really that revolutionary, but it's still pretty cool. However, we also take a look at Toshi Tools, right? And Toshi Tools is kind of helping quite essentially guide someone towards their journey to be building on the base network. So yeah, that's kind of the, pretty much use case, I would say, when it comes to Toshi, if I were to even call it that, when it comes to what's tied to it. But then it's just pretty cool, right? Again, Toshi is named after Brian Armstrong's pet cat, and Brian Armstrong is the co-founder of Coinbase. And here's the thing, Coinbase, what I find pretty unique about it is that by them making a layer 2 and then not having that layer 2, again, the base network, have its own native token, it really does bring a lot more attention, I think, to something like Toshi, because had, let's say, the base network had its own native token, a lot of the attention is going to be diverted away from the projects that are on the base network. Because instead of just, believing in projects on there, why not just get, hypothetically, in some cases, at least personally for me, just the native token, right? Instead of, believing in some of the projects on there. Now, granted, had, let's say, the base network had its own native token, I would still have that, right? And then I would also still have Toshi. But then just because it doesn't have its own native token, instead of me even allocating some towards that, I can't, right? So again, it's just something towards like Toshi. Now, Toshi is not the only project I believe on the base network. There's also something like, Brett. And Brett is another meme coin, which for the longest time was way more popular than Toshi. Now Toshi is better than Brett in terms of market cap. It's more popular. It's actually more recognizable. And I just think that, why is that the case? It's because Toshi just makes a little bit more sense, in my opinion, in terms of the naming aspect, because it is, named after Brian Armstrong's pet cat, and Brian Armstrong, again, is the co-founder of Coinbase. And then just because, again, Toshi has those listings, I just think it's a little bit more popular right now. And Brett has done very impressive. It's by no means a small meme coin. I mean, the market cap is in the hundreds of millions, but when I take a look at, Toshi, it's kind of heading in that sort of good momentum. Now, only time will tell, but this is the way I take a look at it. Now, also on top of that, there's something called Aerodrome, which is on the base network, but then Aerodrome is a decentralized exchange. and its native token called Arrow is of course clearly not a meme coin. But that's actually not that many projects on the base network that are that popular in my opinion. Like when I think about the base network, I think about 2 meme coins and a decentralized exchange. That's pretty much about it currently. Like again, I think about Airdrome and then Brett and Toshi, which is kind of fascinating to see how something which is on the S&P 500, something which is publicly listed like Coinbase, having a layer 2, and then on that layer 2, there's pretty much 3 famous projects that 2 out of the 3 are meme coins. So I think that's still kind of how early the base network is in the grand scheme of things. When I take a look at it, I don't want to wait 5 years later to believe in projects on the base network just because, for what? At that point, it's already probably more established and stuff like that. I'm not telling them to do anything, but this is my mentality. And just real quick, in case someone is wondering, okay, what is a layer 2? What's so special about that? Let me explain that real quick. Like, again, basically a layer 2 in this case allows Ethereum to be enjoyed, but then at the same time, not having to quite essentially deal with some of the drawbacks, like for instance, the sky-high gas fees and arguable scalability issues. So that's kind of the thing about the base network. Again, what I find even more interesting actually about the base network is that when it comes to it, it's actually helped build in collaboration with Optimism, and Optimism is another layer 2, again, just like I mentioned earlier on the video. But then what's so fascinating is that Optimism basically helped Coinbase build a competitor to itself. I mean, let's just think about this again. Optimism is a layer 2, and then it helped Coinbase build a layer 2. It's like, wow, that is pretty interesting to me. But I guess, Ethereum is a massive layer 1 blockchain, so it's a little bit hard to be saturated when it comes to, Ethereum layer 2s. But still, why did they do that? Who knows? But it's still pretty interesting. But again, besides that point though, again, 2 cents market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply around 8.5 billion. Like, I mean, we've seen Dogecoin nearly exceed that, give or take, by around 80 billion. Back in 2021, that was years ago, and even if Toshi just went to 1 cent, which is still over 10x, right, from right now, like, I think hypothetically, I don't even know if Dogecoin could do that in the next, like, let's say, 5 months. You know what I mean? But that's only time will tell type of scenario. When I take a look at something like, again, Toshi, I like the vibe overall. I like how it's on the base network, and I'm just still staying patient because whatever happens in the market, it's going to be beyond my control. The only thing I can do is stay patient and just wait for a moment in time in which something does happen, which, in the grand scheme of things, Toshi has had a pretty okay recovery, but I haven't seen that next leg up. And that's what I'm waiting for, and who knows when it will exactly happen. I can't demand the markets to do this or do that. The only thing I can do is stay patient with the projects that I do believe in, hold, and I just wait. That's it. It doesn't mean it's going to do good, because me believing in something, or should I say a project, right, doesn't mean it's automatically going to do good. That's not the case. Like, the only thing I can do is just stay patient and wait, and if it does good, hopefully that's great. And that's just about it, really. And I'm staying patient, and I'm just liking what I'm seeing when it comes to Toshi, but only time will tell. And I want to say thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And it's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.